I've had a lot of inquiries about the materials I use. Now here's a bird's eye view of my setup. I'm right-handed, so I have my water palette and brushes on the right and my drawing board directly in front of me. This makes a very convenient and easy, simple way of painting. I always stand to paint. I try and replicate the position I would take if I was painting outside. I always stand outside unless the weather is very windy, in which case I might have to get lower down. This keeps the paintings, or helps at least keep the paintings lively and fresh. Now I've had a lot of inquiries about the drawing board that I use. So let me describe how easy they are. They're all homemade and I have several of these of various sizes. Now the drawing board consists of a Perspex mount essentially. The Perspex is about 3 millimeters thick and it's the size of a mount and what I would call a baseboard, which is a piece of hardboard or MDF, and the hinge is just a piece of canvas which I've glued, and the paper goes in between the two boards, and then I clip it together with these heavy paper clips. Now this is a very convenient way of holding the paper flat. It's not an alternative to stretching the paper, but I'm not mucking about outside with masking tape or drawing pins with cold fingers. Furthermore, when you finish the picture you can get a nice sort of deckled edge. For example, here is one of my paintings from this drawing board, and you can see that it's got a nice deckled edge all the way round. Indeed, sometimes I frame these straight into a frame the size of the paper. The important thing is when you do this is to have a spacer between the paper and the glass. You don't want glass flat onto paper. And I also paint occasionally an upright landscape with a different type of drawing board, but it also has that, what I would call a very attractive decal edge, which gives the painting a sort of slightly unfinished real look, as if it's straight out of a sketchbook, and contributes to the fresh liveliness of the image. I should say that I use mainly two types of paper: Bockingford Not surface, £200, and Arche rough, either £140 or £300. I think the difference between the papers is mainly to do with the surface and the time it takes you to put the paint on the paper. The paper that you should use is the one that suits the way you deliver the paint to the paper. Bockingford is a fairly absorbent cellulose paper and you have to work quite quickly. It's very easy to get a nice fresh wash, but you have to control the moisture in the brush to get any dry brush work. Arche, on the other hand, is quite different. It is very easy to get dry brush, but you have to work harder to get a nice flowing wash. In other words, with Bockingford, to get dry brush, you have to control the water in the brush. With Arche, to get a nice flowing wash, you've got to work quite hard and control the water in the brush and have plenty of it, as well as a nice strong wash. Now my palette is a replica of the old-fashioned Binning Munro. They're made of enamelled brass. I have to say they're very expensive, and there's two companies in the United Kingdom, as far as I know, manufacture these handmade palettes. One is called the Watercolour Paint Box Company, and the other company is called the Little Brass Box Company. Now the colours I use are all Winsor & Newton professional artist quality pigment, And essentially I've got 4 blues, 4 reds and 4 yellows and odd colours here. So I've got 4 examples of each of the primary colours. And I've arranged them so there's a logical order. The blues go from a very dark blue to a light blue. The reds go from what you might call a brown to a bright fiery red. And the yellows go from a dull yellow to a lemon. So in order, I've got Windsor Blue. Now that's Windsor Blue Green. I think some people call it Phthalo Blue. You can buy Windsor Blue Red and Windsor Blue Green, but I wanted the coldest, greenest blue, as I've got some warm blues. So that's Windsor Blue Green, French Ultramarine. Again, there's all variations of Ultramarine at the moment. There's Ultramarine Green, Ultramarine Red, Ultramarine Dark and Ultramarine Light. I've simply kept with the old-fashioned French Ultramarine. Cobalt Blue and Cerulean Blue. Then I've got Burnt Umber and Burnt Sienna, Light Red and Cadmium Red. Finally, 4 yellows, Raw Umber and Raw Sienna. And incidentally, these are Raw Umber and Raw Sienna. If you raise them to a high temperature and you burn them, they turn redder, and therefore you get burnt umber and burnt sienna, which, as you can see, are slightly redder. That is Aureolin yellow. Sometimes I put cadmium yellow in there, and that is cadmium lemon. The 4 colours here are always changing. Currently, I've got Alizarin Crimson, Viridian Green, Cobalt Violet, and that alternates between Payne's Grey and Ivory Black. The corners here have just got odds and ends, which I was trying out. That is Turquoise, and this is Cadmium Orange. I'm not sure I shall use those much. Finally, here's some of the brushes I use. You want some big brushes for skies and large areas, and a lot of beginners underestimate the size of the brush they need. It's very difficult to give a size. People quote size 10, size 12, size 18, but there's no uniform standard. So probably the easiest way of conveying the large size of these brushes is to put it against this ruler. And as you can see, the ferrule of this wash brush, which is squirrel hair, is about 1 centimetre wide. This one is slightly bigger than 1 centimetre. All my brushes have the same shape. They're all round. I've never been one for going in for fancy shaped brushes. The main variation, apart from size, is the hair. These are squirrel mops. Again, that's about 1 centimetre wide at the ferrule, but of course you can see that the hair is shorter. Now I often use a lot of Chinese brushes, and I've grown to like these. I find them very useful, and they keep their point nicely. They're very hard wearing, but I understand most of them are made of goat or wolf hair, and a lot of these, and I have many of these brushes, a lot of these came from a friend of mine, Lynn, in Hong Kong, who kindly gave them to me. They seem to keep their point nicely. They take up the wash, but they also release it nicely. But they are a bit of an acquired taste. This is actually a sable brush. I think, although sables are nice, they are expensive and they're not particularly hard wearing. That one is a number 12, but is less than 1 centimetre wide at the ferrule, as you can see. Whereas this is a number 10, so it's smaller, and yet is the number's smaller, but the ferrule's bigger. You do need some small brushes. There's nothing nicer on a painting than a few delicate strokes of detail amongst some large masses of wash. These again are small Chinese brushes and they're quite tiny. A lot of people use riggers, but I've never got on very well with riggers, mainly because you have to judge very carefully the distance of the brush from the paper. The important thing is to exploit the type of brushes that you use, and don't think that you can buy your way out of a painting problem. I often say to students, I've never solved a painting problem by throwing money at it. Finally, I usually use a 4B pencil just to sketch the initial drawing in before I start painting. I'd rather use a soft pencil, which is fairly easy to erase without damaging the paper, than a hard pencil, and you have to rub hard and it digs into the paper. I think the most important thing is to use the best materials that you feel that you can afford. That way you can eliminate everything other than yourself from the reason that watercolour has gone wrong, as they inevitably do sometimes. Just enjoy the painting. I hope that's been useful. Thank you for watching.